Good morning, everyone. We're about to close the doors, and we might just lock them. So you will be the ones that are here to see us unlock the secrets of the universe. I am Peter Giannetti. I'm the vice president, and you don't have to write all this down because you don't have enough ink in your pens, of editorial content and education. I'm also the editor-in-chief of Homepage News, and welcome to the Inspired Home Show 2026. I have the pleasure of putting on the education program at the show each year, and each year I'm surprised by all of the unique insights that we receive. This one was especially interesting. This is the future of AI, and your business depends on it today. And let me give you a little context. One of our presenters today is Conant of BWG Connect. And Aaron has worked with the IHA for a few years now, bringing technology and e-commerce content to our education programs. We do something every fall called CHESS. It's called the Chief Housewares Executive Super Session. Aaron's presented there. He's done some digital content with us. And I will announce what we're planning to do shortly. But we've done a couple sessions on AI at CHESS in the last 2 or 3 years, where Aaron brought in some technology professionals to talk about AI and how it applies to their business. And even 3 years ago when we were doing that, there was a growing interest in AI, but I always felt that everyone sort of left these sessions scratching their heads a little bit. Is that right, Aaron? Do you remember this? They were trying to figure out, what do I need to do? How do I become an early adopter? Should I be an early adopter? But they sort of knew it was coming on, but they just couldn't figure out a way to understand it practically. It was still very theoretical to them. Well, here we are 3 years later, and I'm here to tell you that it's no longer theoretical. AI is here. I know you've asked yourself, if you've attended this today, you've asked yourself, what do I need to know just sometimes to get started in AI? How is this going to change the dynamic? I remember 25 years ago when the CEO of a leading small appliance company told me, people will never buy a coffee maker on the internet. Let's let that sit in for a second. And I think a lot of people believe that right now. AI is changing the rules. AI has many facets to it and how it's going to be applied to business. Our speakers today are going to sit down in a fireside chat when it's 60 degrees out, this is the warm glow of our fire right now. They're going to talk about AI in a couple of contexts. But I think the key is they're going to talk about how this is now a practical component. It should be a practical component of everyone's businesses. You have to understand it. You're going to have to participate, because the train at some point is, if it's not already starting to leave the station, it's going to leave the station. You got to figure out how to be on that train. Everyone's heard about ChatGPT and the applications in creative enterprise and marketing. There's some operational aspects of AI. You're hearing about companies right now that are in the business that are letting people go, and this discussion about how AI is going to kill jobs. And I like to think that with every job that technology eliminates, it can create more jobs on the other side of it. They're just new jobs, new skills. You're going to hear today about how to keep the human element engaged in the AI processes that you're looking to implement. And you're also going to hear about agentic AI and this notion of, I'll give you a hypothetical example. In 5 years from now, I'm going to just talk into my phone and I'm going to say, I need Band-Aids. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to search for Band-Aids. I'm not going to search and pick from a retailer of those Band-Aids. I may just say, I need Band-Aids. And a day later or 2 hours later, Band-Aids are going to show up at my door. I don't know where they came from. I won't maybe care where they came from. But someone has to make those Band-Aids. Someone has to fulfill those Band-Aids, and someone has to get them to your house. Retailers want to be in that, and they're working very hard right now to be in that path. Brands have to figure out how to stay in that path as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce a couple people to you today. First, Aaron Conant. He is the founder of BWG Connect. It's a networking group for technology professionals. Come on up and have a seat, Aaron. He is engaged with technology professionals, e-commerce professionals on a daily basis. He brings them together to discuss what's going on with the goal of bringing those solutions to people, to folks like you. And Udayan Bose is the founder of NetElixir. It's an e-commerce solutions business. And in the last few years, Udayan has really become at the forefront of understanding how to implement artificial intelligence into your business plan and how that applies to the next generation of e-commerce. They're going to sit down, they're going to take us through some things, they're going to have some slides with us to help you. Today's sessions are being recorded. They will be released in video and on audio shortly after the show, so stay tuned for that. We'll leave some time after their conversation for Q&A, and I hope that when you leave today, maybe you're not scratching your heads quite as much as you would have. So with that, Aaron, Udayan, it's all yours. Oh, let me get you that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. All right, this is going to be a fun conversation. There's a couple of things I want you to take away. Is one, that Udayan and I are just normal people who love to interact with people. So ping us on LinkedIn. We encourage you to do that. Reach out anytime you want with any questions whatsoever. I run a giant networking group, so I was on the brand side for a long time, and I struggled to have great conversations. We go way back, I guess this slide. I'm a chemist. I like problem solving at the end of the day. And so the one thing that chemistry didn't provide for me was human interaction. So I jumped out of there and I got into strategic project management. And one of those crazy projects I took was launching direct-to-consumer, B2B, and Amazon, included international as well. And it just took off. And the issue I had was having great conversations and finding strategic partners to help me leverage my business growth. And there wasn't enough forums out there for that. So I quit and started my own business, which was all networking. We'll do 80 to 90 dinners a year across the US. We'll do 200 to 300 webinars, all free to brands. But we are constantly vetting out the top service providers that are out there. So if you need an Amazon agency, a TikTok shop, you need help with drop shipping, you just ping our network, and we can ping a lot of brands in it. And then that's how we do a couple things is, number one, get the topics for anything we're going to talk about, but it's also how we get the resident experts. So we're asking everybody, not only what are you trying to solve for, but who's helping you solve it? Who's actually good? In the craziness of Google or now ChatGPT searches, who's the best and who's really working? And so brands collaborate together for that. So that's how we kind of got to the topic for today. I was talking with Peter and the team at the IHA, and they said, obviously, AI. I don't think anybody's shocked that this was one of the top things that people were asking about. And so when the question popped up, like, well, is there somebody you would like to interview? Because I'm not an expert here. Is there somebody you'd like to interview? And I said, I literally just did a webinar on this, and Udayan and the team at NetElixir are some of the best around. So Udayan, I'll kick it to you for a brief intro.
Thank you very much. I can absolutely start with a disclaimer. I had no idea that this is the headshot. I'm going to be wearing the same jacket. So please excuse me for that. So I'm the founder and CEO of NetElixir. We are a digital marketing agency. And we have been around for a little over 22 years now, focused on primarily mid-size and large e-commerce companies and help them grow their online sales. I also am fairly involved in the academic world as well. I have an innovation fellow in Columbia Business School, do some teaching at Cornell and Indian School of Business and CUNY Baruch as well. And we also run a foundation which is extremely close to our hearts. So essentially, we sponsor young girls primarily from slums in India and sponsor their high school and college education and help them find jobs, white-collar jobs as well. And we are seeing firsthand how this entire initiative is transforming villages, one girl at a time. So thank you for joining us and would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Yep, Aaron, back to you. This is a little bit about BWG. We can probably skip through it really quick.
Yeah. So I think the primary question that they have is there's a lot of hype out there. We see it every day. There's a new post on, LinkedIn, we'll say, or X or Google, wherever it is, around AI. And a lot of the brands that I'm talking to on a daily basis are like, they just want to know, like, what's hype and what's not. Like, what do I need to be concerned about right now, and what do I need to be prepping for?
So I think this is a part of our ongoing conversation that we have been having for the last 3 years now. And I'll try to cite examples most pertinent to the particular category as such. And just to give an example, essentially how it really connects. The first part is there is a lot of hype. There is a Princeton professor who has written this book called AI as the Snake Oil Sale as well. So I think there is just a lot going out there as well. But I think what I really want to delve in, Aaron, today in this conversation is how to really make it a lot more demystified, a lot more usable, and a lot more application oriented as well. So if you really fundamentally look at how many folks have really used ChatGPT or Gemini or one of these chatbots, any show of hands, I think pretty much everyone had, right? I asked the same question almost exactly 3 years back at another event, a beauty event in New York. And in a room of about 200 people, about 4 people raised their hands. So understandably, folks are using AI a lot more in terms of in multiple ways and so on, right? I think the most common way, Aaron, that we are seeing people using it is maybe create content or maybe edit content, create creatives and so on and so forth. Because that's the easiest and the least almost like a friction area in terms of the using of AI, which is more of efficiency as we call it. But I think what I really wanted to discuss today is the possibilities which AI can have much beyond just creating only efficiency and saving time today. And it probably addresses to an extent, I think what Peter also mentioned earlier, there is a lot of hue and cry around how AI will take jobs, etc., etc. I probably am on the other side. I think it actually will add to the jobs that we are seeing, a different type of jobs, but nevertheless, it will add to the jobs, but we'll sort of get to that. So I think how much is hype? It's dependent, I believe, entirely on as to how you are using AI and what is your perspective as to how exactly it can be applied for your very specific business outcomes.
Yeah, let's jump into it because I see this, the housewares business is complex, a little of your background there. And then as we walk through, because you said generative AI, most of the conversations I'm having right now, we just did a dinner back in New York, and the purpose of it was to understand how you get a direct-to-consumer website ultra personalized for every person that shows up. And everybody knew that was a topic. We had 30 people show up to discuss it, and yet every part of the discussion went back to how can ChatGPT help me render a better marketing draft? How can ChatGPT, help me come up with better wording for, basically anything? How can it help me come up with a business practice? And I thought it was very interesting that we're still at square one, but if we'll tailor it specifically to the housewares industry too, that would be great.
So it was interesting. I think the houseware industry, so last week I was in LA. I was having lunch with a very well-respected executive from this industry. He's no longer with the houseware industry, but some of you probably know Carl Walshowski. He was the CEO of World Kitchen for about 15 years. So I just said, Carl, that next week Aaron and I are talking as to what should I really even talk, right? So Carl's advice is very specific, and I really sort of pay a lot of heed to the advice because I think he is one of the most amazing CEOs or chairmen out there. And his advice was, whatever you do, talk about the houseware industry and the biggest challenge which the houseware brands are facing, which is the margin squeeze. Because of all the tariffs and the demand fluctuations, et cetera, there has been a tremendous sort of a demand squeeze as well as the margin squeeze as well. So that's where I think I really want to talk in the context effectively of the houseware business. I know I'm preaching to the choir, and this is just a few. The first is, when we were working with Oneida or when with World Kitchen or Corel brands and so on and so forth, we were amazed as to how a business can run with so many SKUs, right? They had literally hundreds of thousands of SKUs. If you think of Oneida, way back in 2000, we worked with them 2007 to 2013. And I think our biggest challenge was how do we really sell that particular higher value product or a higher margin product and so on. So I think the high SKU count was one of the characteristic. The second part, which we are seeing now more and more, the purchase journey has become extremely unpredictable. So effectively, I think it can be related to a little bit of a generational thing as well. Gen Z, for example, grew up as AI first natives, right? So essentially, their behavior working with AI is very different compared to, let us say, folks like us, the Gen Xers and so on, right? I think we really look at it a different way as well. And when we started plotting, so we have a technology called Elixir Insights. We are able to plot the entire consumer journey from the time someone lands on the website till the time they make the purchase or not make the purchase and the repeat purchases and so on. And it is just so amazing if you really pattern or map out all of these consumer behavior. There are 2 or 3 things which come out very interesting. For example, Gen X has a much quicker propensity to buy from the time they come to your website to the time they actually make or commit to the purchase is fairly linear. They don't really visit more than maybe 5 to 7 times, but then they make the purchase. Social media has not as much of an influence, at least for most categories like houseware, essentially. But if you really look at the Gen Z, the average number of times, or actually let me ask you the question. So Gen X is about 6 to 7 times. How many times do you think a Gen Z customer came to the website prior to making the first purchase? Any guesses? Was it less than 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 plus? Any guesses as to how many times they keep on coming back to the site finally before coming to the purchase? Any guesses? There are no good guesses. Sorry? Yep. Very interesting is actually between 10 and 20. So essentially,
That's not what all the hype would lead you to believe. Exactly. It is that they saw it on TikTok, they went to the website and bought it.
Exactly. So I think the impulse part is sometimes getting played out, but I'm really focusing on the houseware category, where it seems that they really need that multiple affirmations or almost like a validation that this particular thing is really good. Very interestingly, and I'll just sort of comment this, knowing that there would be some Gen Z in the audience, they are looking for as much of a social validation as almost like their personal sort of a reduction of cognitive dissonance as well. So those are the things that you think about when you really talk about a low and fairly unpredictable purchase frequency and a journey and so on, which is, I think, the rapidly evolving consumer behavior as well. Now, in terms of consumer behavior, I'll give you another example as such. We are seeing, again, and I'll get to the AI part, we firmly believe that those are the areas in terms of understanding consumer behavior where AI can be applied for a tremendous advantage for your business. And we'll sort of get to that. I just wanted to mention this. High margin pressure we have talked about, and the cost of brand building increases and so on. So all of these things are the complexity we really wanted to use as a context before really just jumping into the AI part specifically.
You know, so I see 2 things in here: the rapidly evolving consumer behavior, and then the cost of brand building continues to increase. Those 2 things for me, a lot of it is around just product discovery as a whole. Mm-hmm. I know AI, ChatGPT, even on Google now, I usually take the first recommendation. All of that is around, the LLMs that are out there. That is changing almost like discovery behavior as a whole. How do brands...
I mean, since you sort of brought it up, I'll just sort of share this slide. This was a very interesting Pew research, which was done roughly about a year back, about 9 months back. Very interesting. When the Google showed up, what is called the AI mode, or let us say a Google thing sort of showed up, people were much less likely to click on the link, on a Google link, to go to the website. Now, let us just sort of consider that for a moment, right? And there was a study that 60% fewer people are essentially clicking on a Google link to go to a website. Now, what does it even mean? That means your consumer, even, or let us say the searcher, is forming an impression about your brand before even going to visit your website, right? So your brand, first of all, has to be visible in all of these, let us say ChatGPT or Google or whatever the AI mode, etc. is. That's, I think, the first implication. The second component is the brand messaging, which actually is not entirely dependent on just as to what you are posting about your brand, but also what, let us say, ChatGPT is aggregating the information to create a perception about the brand. They have to be synchronized as well and match, right? For example, if ChatGPT finds out something from Reddit or Medium or one of these places about your brand, which may not exactly be in alignment with the message that you really want to pass on to your audience, then immediately there is an dissonance which may likely to happen as well, right? So I think your brand is not entirely, or brand building is not entirely defined by you. A little bit of a scary thought, if I were to sort of think about it, right? It's almost like a summation of what your consumer is talking about on the internet or the web. The third component, I think, is again an interesting thing in this one. The folks who actually, despite all of these Google listings appearing and all the AI overviews, etc., they still clicked on a Google ad and went to your website, had a 3 times higher propensity to make a purchase, right? So are people using all of these AI overviews or the AI sort of generated presence just to really form an impression about your brand and then decide, do I want to even click on the link to go to your website or not? Maybe, seems so, because 3 times higher conversion rate is something which cannot be completely ignored as well. So again, I think just this research, and I'm more than happy. I mean, if you just want to send me an email, I'll just forward the study to you as well. It's very interesting, some of these factors as well. But I'll just leave you with 2 or 3 things, Aaron, which I think is worth thinking about other than this. The first concept, which I think is an important one, is if the impression about your brand is getting formed even before someone visits your website, how much control and what would you really do about that? The second component essentially is, if the people are not even clicking on your website to come to your clicking on the link to come to your website, how exactly do you track the effectiveness of your marketing program? But more importantly, I mean, what happens to that 40 or 50% of all the traffic which used to come to your website from Google suddenly gets slashed by maybe about 20 or 30%. So what do you do? So all of these things, I think, are something which I really want to sort of call out, primarily because that is what AI is causing. It is fundamentally and totally changing consumer behavior, how we really engage and consume content, how we really engage with brands, how we really form perception about brands, how we do pretty much, I'll sort of go into some of the examples later as well, do anything and everything as well. So I think these are the 3 things which I already talked about. So I'll not really spend too much time. 60% of the Google searches now end without a click. If people are not even coming to your website, how can you sell to them? Right? This is, I think, what we are calling essentially in very digital agency terms, more of an AI-mediated discovery era. So where the impression is formed based on whether your brand is getting included in all those ChatGPT conversations or AI conversations and so on. And to do that, a new area of digital marketing has come up literally in the last 36 months, which is called GEO, or generative engine optimization. And that in my opinion, sounds most like the science fiction, a crazy thought. And the thought is, earlier, your goal was to get visible on Google so that your consumers could find you. Now, in this world of AI and AI agents, you don't really have to focus only on the consumer being a human. The consumer actually can be an agent as well, an AI agent as well. And the number of data points that they are accessing to form an impression about your brand is probably millions or billions of times more than a human can actually sort of form an impression about your brand as well. And that's where I think the generative engine optimization has become extremely important, because generative engine optimization is all about really making those fundamental changes to the technical architecture of your website and other stuff, etc., the social media presence, the content optimization, so that people can find you or you get included in those conversations that really matter most for your brand, essentially. So that's, I think, my very long answer to your question, Aaron. But I think there is a lot of disruption and shift which is happening, which I wanted to share.
But what I'm hearing is a takeaway. So we've talked about SEO for, 20 years now, whatever it is, which is crazy, right? It's gone from Google keyword stuffing to, I don't want to say it's not relevant, but not as relevant as it was 5 years ago. So we have marketing agencies, we have digital agencies that are helping us out with SEO. Is there now that strategic pivot that we have to tell them, you have to be focused on GEO, and what does that look like? I mean, that has to happen now. Right?
Other than that, your brand is not included. And if 60% are not clicking, that means they are not even coming to your website.
And then you're not just optimizing for people showing up on the site, you're actually optimizing, like you were saying, the back-end architecture of the site So are they going back to their web dev firms and saying, hey, by the way, you need to update all of this stuff on the back end? Where it used to be, what is the aesthetic, what's the page load speed, all of that. Does an agent even care about that?
I think broadly, if you really look at it, I mean, I give you a first philosophical answer and then go into the technical answer. The philosophical answer is AI in this case is trying to bridge the gap between what the consumer is looking for by literally anticipating as to what they are searching for and what they need. As for example, Peter gave the example, I think which was a phenomenal one, anticipating your needs and then serving you the choices essentially almost immediately, right? So it cuts down the entire process which I talked about earlier. The earlier process I talked about, that Gen Z typically while buying houseware, probably between 10 to 20 times they come to your website, etc. So the concept of this evolved research has suddenly gotten compressed into a few seconds, literally at this point in time. And there was this very interesting research which was done by Walmart team. And they found, this was done, I think in July, I think some of you may want to check it out. It's called the Retail Rewired survey, which was done by Walmart last year. And they said something which was really the most shocking stat. They said that after family and friends, people tend to depend most on AI. More than any influencers, more than any social connections that they are not really first degree connection to or second degree connection to, and so on and so forth, which is last year. And their projection was, and this projection is out there as well, that people will start to really start believing the AI recommendations more than even their close friends by this year. And who knows, maybe more than their family recommendations by next year, right? So in that situation, I mean, there is this, the concept of research has to be reimagined or rethought completely as well. I know it's all, my idea here is not to sort of, again, scare and overwhelm, but I think it's important for us to at least be aware of all of these things which is going on.
It's all right to be, like, I think it's funny. So a couple of things come to mind, and that is, like, we used to laugh, like, oh, I saw it on the internet, it must be true, right? And then everybody laugh, ha, ha, ha. But now if you're reading an AI overview, it's a consolidation of just the stuff that's on the internet, and people will accept that as truth.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though it's just a consolidated.
I mean, you may have sort of read about all these AI psychiatrists, right? And so on and so forth. And the amount of dependency that many of the people are really having on those AI bots as being your psychiatrist, I think has been quite substantially on the rise.
The other comment was you put me onto a book called Prediction Machines that I think is a great book to read. It basically, it does a deep dive on explaining AI, and at the end of the day, it's just making a prediction based on the data that you put in. So all of these tools that are out there, they're all based on how good of data, the quality of the data that you put in. So you put something bad in, something bad comes out. It just misses the mark. But if you can put very, very high quality information in, you will get high quality answers out. And it's just literally making a prediction of whatever you're asking it to predict. And do you remember the
Yeah, it was. This is my favorite book. Literally, I feel that everyone and anyone who's interested in AI, which I guess is everyone, should be reading this book by 3 professors in University of Toronto called Prediction Machines. And it came out in 2017, 2018, but I think it sort of breaks down the entire AI model in very economic terms, very, very specific, manageable, understandable terms as well. I would very highly recommend Prediction Machines as such. And that sort of probably is a good way to segue into the next one, which is, this is, I think, one slide which I really wanted to focus on. I mean, if there was one message, as Peter was mentioning, as to, in terms of the key takeaways, this would be one message I would love for everyone to take. Because I think fundamentally, this has an implication for every business. So now I'll try to just move, we've talked about the chat GPT and how is that disrupted the space, et cetera, et cetera. Now let me talk about as to how I really break down all of these AI things in very simple terms. I started by saying, Aaron, that we are probably at this point in time, all that we are talking about is efficiency AI. Because efficiency AI, it saves time, right? I mean, writing a 500-word essay is a lot time consuming. One of the biggest struggles, I was talking to 2 Princeton professors, their big struggle is, she teaches humanities there, And she said that everyone is using AI to create these phenomenal essays, which I can't even make out whether it is written by a human and this thing. And it was very interesting. And I am a part of this group called the Consortium of Operational Excellence in Retailing. It is co-hosted by Harvard and Wharton. And this was actually during our lunch conversation. The professor of Vanderbilt, the dean of Vanderbilt, had a very unique sort of a thing. One of the teachers who teaches OB or organizational behavior came up to her and said that I have a very unique problem or a challenge. This was Vanderbilt MBA program. The problem was, this was the first year class of Vanderbilt MBA. I mean, they have a 2-year MBA program. And they had all gotten the same marks, exactly the same marks on an exam that she had given. All 55 students in her class had gone exactly the same score, right? So understandably, they had used AI, maybe the same AI, to really get this thing. Now the question that the dean presented at the table was, what should I do? What grade should I give the student? Should I fail everyone? But if she fails everyone, then her rating as a teacher or an educator suffers because she'll get bad ratings. If she lets one person pass, then the other people will say that why are we have the same answer, the same marks, how can you really give us that person, give her an A, why am I getting a B? So what should I, and if that essentially, if she's sort of giving everyone an A, then fundamentally, and the dean sort of put it very well, and it's just a little poignant as well. She said that my teacher actually was questioning what is the meaning of being a teacher, right? What is the even purpose of my getting into the line of education, right? So it's a crazy situation because understandably, when something is easy, people don't have to spend time, people rush into it. And that's what we have seen in the first entire wave, which is called the efficiency AI and so on. So you really have chatbots pop up everywhere, right? You really have students, for example, copying from the different answers and the prompts that they do. The prompts can be engineered, can be the same as well. We have actually seen a lot of these Shopify and some of the e-commerce platforms launch their own chatbots, right? So very easily the customer interaction chatbot. So all of this is great stuff on the business perspective when you really come in terms of simplifying the consumer engagement and the consumer journey and the behavior, right? But is that what AI is all about? And that's where I beg to differ. Because I think AI can do so much more. And I'll sort of share with you very tangible proof, so much more.
Just a quick question on that. Because as businesses, right, and we talked about margins and margin compression, we're asking everybody to be better at what they do, more efficient with their time.
Yep.
So is the recommendation that they should start to master this? Like, it's almost like an implication, like, I think you have to at this point.
Yeah. So I think this has become almost like a life skill or a mandatory skill, because if you really don't do that to save your time, essentially that may not be the best use of time. But again, what this efficiency AI is doing is some of the manual and the regular mundane work, it is just sort of doing it and helping save time and sort of doing it quicker and simpler and easier and so on. And that's, I think, what typically efficiency AI is doing. But I really wanted to focus on as to with that time that you are saving, let us say a 500-word essay, you have saved time and it has been done in a few seconds. What exactly are you doing with the time? So last year we had this opportunity to partner with Rutgers Public Informatics Department and really work on an academic paper. The academic paper, we were the little guinea pigs or subjects, because what we had done is we have at NetElixir, we said that digital agencies, I think the model is going to get disrupted back in 2023. So we built our own privacy security layer and then built our entire marketing operating system. So marketing operating system, let us say you are sort of doing Google Ads management or email marketing management. All of this stuff can be done. We were able to, after it was implemented, free up about 30 to 35% of people's time. So this was freed up time because we had really broken down the task. I'll sort of go into that specifics as well. Now with this time, we said that can this time be utilized in terms of identifying opportunities which we did not even have time to think about earlier. And that was the big aha moment for us, because we literally stumbled in that way in terms of a decision AI. So we were able to really utilize things like predictive analytics and machine learning to predict as to which of your customers is likely to make a purchase in the next 6 months, who's likely to churn in the next 3 months, and so on. So what we had done is, by combining both of these, because we had time saved because of efficiency AI, because the same manual work suddenly was being able to be done in 65% of the time. So 35% of the time, we got into creating an R&D project and built Elixir Insights, which has become now more of our decision engine, which really tells us which customer cohort should you be really focusing on. Which customer is likely to churn in the next 6 months, who's likely to buy in the next 2 months, what product should you be really even advertising and pushing, what promotions should you be running. It actually sort of advises us even in terms of pricing strategy as well. Would you know as to the new model or the pattern that you have really launched essentially will really have an impact on the profitability and so on? So it was really, that was the point, which was the game changer, right? We saved time with efficiency AI and repurposed that time in terms of growing the business. So that was, I think, one of the concrete ways as well, which led us to, I think, the entire concept of performance AI, which I'll sort of get into as to one of the very practical case studies as well, which help. So this one, if there was just one takeaway from this entire fireside chat that I would love for everyone to take away is, do not give up on AI. I don't think AI is snake oil. I don't think AI is hype. AI done in a manner which just is focused on efficiency and saving time, and that probably is just the basic starting point. But the biggest challenge and the biggest goal and the priority for every business leader in the world today would be, how do we really repurpose that time saved to really tap into the value of human judgment. That human judgment, AI cannot have, because AI is just collecting all of the stuff which is available in the internet is doing this. Or maybe sort of repurposing this and giving you the answers and so on. It can never substitute human judgment. And that's where it improves choices, decision AI. It elevates the value of human judgment. Again, I'll give you an example from this book, Prediction Machines. So the example that the professors give in this amazing book, I can't really recommend it highly enough, is when the demand for coffee goes up in maybe a country which was not really consuming as much coffee, the demand for sugar and milk also goes up as well, or creamer as well goes up, right? So it's almost like the associative property, the classic, the economists out here would probably sort of appreciate this part. So as the value and the adoption of AI or the efficiency AI goes up, it frees up time to elevate the value of human judgment. And suddenly you're able to identify areas which you never thought was possible. We have done it. We have done it at NetElixir, and we really keep on doing it. And I'm telling you, it's just transformative. So that's where getting to the point, I think, which one of the points which Peter mentioned in the beginning was, will AI take jobs? AI will take tasks and jobs which, honestly speaking, do not really require as much human judgment. I mean, AI can do that better. But it will create many more jobs which really value and have a higher emphasis on utilizing the human judgment and creativity to the level that we have never ever experienced currently, at least so far.
It begs the question there, where do you see, I talk to 20 to 30 brands a week. And so when I'm talking to them, everybody's at the efficiency AI stage. That's what it seems like. But everybody also thinks that everybody else is at this, and I'm going to put in the decision or performance AI. It's like they're sitting back saying, I feel like I'm way far behind, when I'm trying to tell them, like, no, everybody's, I don't want to say they're spinning their wheels. They're trying to figure out what tracks to get on this AI piece. Where do you see brands today? Like, how many people are at the decision? How many people are just at efficiency?
I would say 99% of the people, unfortunately, are still at efficiency.
Well, fortunately, if you're in the room and you think you're behind, right? Like, and you're not behind.
Very, very few. I don't think anyone is behind.
Okay.
At this point in time. It's just that the intention and the intent that there is beyond just efficiency and creating those 500-word essays in 30 seconds, there is a life beyond that. And that's what I really wanted to emphasize on. It can really elevate the value of your decision. It can really elevate and get into a level which it drives performance impact as well. And I'll share with you, Aaron, I mean, this is what I had, it's an important slide because hopefully our idea here is, hopefully it inspires you to really see beyond just the efficiency AI, right? The first part, again, it's a very big concept that I'm talking about. And I think it has been talked by a lot of folks as well. We are seeing the moment you go on to the level 2, which is the decision AI, think of AI as electricity, right? Now, how many people there is a lot of thing about AI, right? When electricity was sort of invented, at that point, electricity, but how do you show electricity? It was because you really are building some applications of electricity. If you didn't have a light bulb, how would you know sitting in a dark room that there is electricity? You wouldn't value that, right? So that's exactly what AI is. So it is the application that you really build which solves your specific problem, which defines how good AI is. So I really wanted to really emphasize this point because nothing can be worse than you giving up on AI and saying that no, AI doesn't work. It is a tool. It is basically a utility, in my opinion, primarily because, again, as I mentioned, if the light bulbs were not there or the fans were not there or the AC was not there, the electricity would be of no value, right? So what is the application that you're using it for? So that's, I think, the first component. How do you go about doing that? That's where I think our big learning, and that's where this research paper has been, essentially, working backwards from the outcomes. If you break down the entire sort of work that you do or the company work that you do, right? And you break it down all the different functions, and it's a pretty gargantuan process. Even when we really did it internally at NetElixir, it was huge. And then identify what are the different outcomes the different functions are producing. And it's a huge list because it is an interconnected list and all this stuff. And then you start working back from the outcomes. How did we even get to these outcomes, right? And that's what we are simplistically calling workflows, right? You do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. A simple example, we do an extensive amount of Google Ads management, and our workflow comprised about 42 different tasks, right? Step 1, not all of them sequential. So it is basically some sequential tasks, parallel tasks, and so on, right? The interesting part, and this is where I think I wanted to bring in a very important concept. Sometimes when you're analyzing the workflows, you will hit, I think, or at least we hit, which I believe is the biggest barrier to AI, or AI adoption in the way it should be. And I'll be very blunt. I mean, what I experienced was hitting the vanity or the ego barrier. This is how we have done for the last 19 years, right? And this is how it should be. Why should we challenge a workflow which has really done so well for us in the past 19 years? Has it not helped us to, become one of the top 25 Google agencies in America? That prevents, how do you really fix and can it really be improved or optimized? So my first request is identifying the outcomes, identifying the workflows, the tasks within the workflows, and simply asking a question, do you still need those 42 steps? Or can the same outcome be produced in 38 steps? Suddenly there is a massive ego blow, primarily because the workflow has been designed, as I mentioned in our case, for 19 years. So once you are past that ego stage or the vanity stage, you essentially get to actually the real objectivity stage. And we actually sort of brought down our Google Ads management to about 38 steps from 42. Now, so we had been doing this process since 2004. When we started the company, right? So understandably, there is a lot of ego which has been, or vanity which has been built. There is a lot of pride as well that this is what it has been. Once we did that, the second step was which of these tasks within the workflow can be automated? Simple question. Now that is the part where our big learning was, it has to be always a collective experience. It cannot be that the leadership team or the exec team says that, just go ahead and implement this. You can't force AI on anyone, right? Because the more that you force, you'll sort of get the opposite reaction that I will not really accept this. On the other hand, what we did was we included the entire group and the team. And then we have redesigned the workflow. That's amazing. I can't believe it that we cut down the steps from 42 to 38. Let me now really see as to what can be automated. We identified about 19 different tasks which could be automated by AI. And everyone said that these are the tasks which are manual, mundane. I don't enjoy doing these things. Let us say creating a report or creating an agenda for our customer calls and all this stuff. And let me sort of get rid of this. So I think the easiest one was those because no one wanted to do them. They had to do it. But that was like AI. So that was basically efficiency AI in play. So that was, I think, my second point in this thing, working backwards from the outcomes without really leaving your vanity and the ego and making it a collective exercise. The third one, it couldn't have happened if we had not kept the humans in the loop. Because the fact is, humans with AI will always beat humans not using AI, as well as AI which are not being used by humans as well. So I'm really bringing in an important concept here, which I really wanted to, if anyone thinks that AI is a technology, I really would love for you to really dispel this. AI is not a technology. AI is not a tool. AI is as much dependent on what is the business problem, what is the outcome you are focusing on, and who's that human who's driving that. So I really wanted to emphasize this concept of humans in the loop, because without that, AI would not function. Or it may function, it would not even function right, because there is always this concept of bad data in and bad outcome out and so on, etc., etc. There is this quality check effort as well. There is this new line of work, the strategic area as well, and all the stuff as well. And the last one, which I think I've found to be very important, and again, probably sort of leads to the question as to how do I even get started? Start with small experiments. Define as to, I want to really change or this one workflow, this one particular task. Let me see if I can really make it a collective endeavor. And we all discuss what is the outcome that we want. We are all in alignment with the outcomes. We are in alignment with what are the tasks involved in the outcomes. And then we really go about doing the experiments and do that as well. So I can't really overemphasize the importance of really sort of digging. So these 4 principles, I think, have been tested by us. I mean, literally, and it has really proven to be very successful. And what I'm trying to do through these, I'm just trying to demystify this entire concept of AI as a tool or a technology. I'll just do this and so on and so forth, etc. But think of AI as electricity or whatever, power or a utility. It entirely depends on the application that you really want to build and the problems that you want to solve. It's almost like I keep on giving the example of 1956. In the US, the Interstate Highway Act was passed, right? Till that time, I mean, that really led into a different revolution altogether, right? Then you had all those, the gas stations come up. Then you had all those fast food places come up and so on. So think of, we are at that juncture of 1956 at this point in time. The question is, what will you build, which is helpful for your business, which solves your margin problem? And I'll sort of show you as to how you can do it through an experiment as well. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of this, I come at it from a brand perspective, is I get asked a lot, what is step one? Like, where do I start? And usually people on the team that are trying to plug in a lot of different AI tools on the side, and there's a pushback. There's a lot of issues on the security side, the cybersecurity side, as everybody's trying to plug these into the network. But one of the things that I like to have a conversation with people is like, this is where you start when people say, what is step one? It is going back and taking a look at, without the ego, looking at the processes, seeing which can be solved just on its own by removing the additional steps.
Yep.
But then looking at those tasks that can be repeatable, that you can then find either a way for your IT team to build, or you can go external on a very specific chunk of tasks. And what that allows you to do is say, hey, this chunk of tasks takes me 4 hours a week, and I've got 10 people on it. That's 40 hours a week. It's this value. And then this is what I see like successful businesses doing right now with it, is they can then put an ROI. They can say, hey, I went and found this AI tool. It's $2,000 a month, and it saves me $20,000 a month. And when you take that to the CIO or the CFO or the CMO or the CEO, whoever it is who's approving the budget, you now actually have an ROI. Most people aren't doing that today. Most people are like, hey, I found this new tool. I want to give it a whirl. And especially right now, I mean, this year we've never done cybersecurity dinners in the past, and we're going to do 12 to 15 because of AI. And a lot of it is around people getting pushback that they can't use the tools. And a lot of that is because the ROI has not been proven, and nobody wants to have you just go randomly plug something in without a benefit. And so in my mind, we've been playing around for a year and a half with the LLMs of the world and chat GPTs, and figured out how we write creative briefs more quickly, or writing LinkedIn posts or whatever it might be. Now we're at the phase where we need to do that problem solving, getting to the next, you're saying that first wave. This is the methodology that successful businesses are using because they can finally get approval with an ROI. Sometimes what fundamentally happens then is internally there's a pushback, and I know we wanted to talk about what does it look like for the future of the organization as well. I don't think have time to go over everything from IT to HR to everything else. And I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions at the end. But you have quick thoughts on...
I think I'll give you an example on the marketing part, right? Because that's the discipline that we'll talk about. I mean, and this is, I'll just quickly go through it. I mean, this is how the marketing, the CMO's role is changing, right? So CMO earlier was campaign management, you have different channels, et cetera, et cetera. Now the CMO's job is building those experimentation systems, right? What is the insight or the analytics that you are capturing? Based on that, what is the overall AI use case that you are building? What are the decisions you are making? Now, effectively, this process is what we call the experimentation system. We are seeing very clearly it really moved from just a management to more of an optimization to now experimentation as such. And I'll give you a very tangible example essentially, and then we'll just sort of wrap up and open it for questions. This actually is an example of what can happen when you really go into the third stage of performance AI. And this is in an unrelated space, not in the houseware segment. It's a company called carparts.com. How many of you have heard of the company? I don't know. Some of you hopefully would have heard car parts, right? So they had a very unique challenge. So car parts has about 42 million SKUs that they sell. And these are car parts, right? So there is a lot of inventory carrying costs, et cetera, et cetera. There were about 3.3 million SKUs which did not sell. They didn't really sell even one unit in the last 2 years. Not one unit, right? They essentially came to us and said, if your experiment is so good, show us the proof, right? Because performance AI, you have to show the proof other than just the talk. So what we did was we directly connected with their first party data. We have this technology called Elixir Insights. We really sort of build those experiments using the first party audiences and the algorithms and so on. And this is the outcome that we are able to provide. Now, these are 1,100 SKUs which they did not sell one unit in 24 months, right? And it was supposed to be sort of go into a write-off. Now, the reason I mentioned about the SKUs example is that is where I come back to my first slide, which we talked about, right? The houseware, many of you have to deal with the struggle of multiple SKUs. There is a lot of liquidation of SKUs which happened, right? I mean, there are the companies which specialize like replacements.com, et cetera, in terms of just how do you sort of just get into that? Then there is a huge number of SKU challenge. Now, how many of you can really benefit from this AI, which sort of when it comes to action? And within 90 days, it really helped unlock about $1 million. And all of this was done using Google Ads, just connecting the AI and sort of bringing this. So this is basically moving from decision AI into performance AI, AI which drives top-line revenue growth. And that's what I really wanted to end with. And I know we have about 10 minutes left. So would love to open up with questions. If anyone wants to, I mean, you have an in-house marketing team and want to do marketing experiments, feel free to download this. I would highly recommend anyone who really has a marketing presence. And we have run about 250 plus structured experiments using AI. And hopefully you can really utilize some of them. We'll be more than happy to chat and so on. So that's, I think, what my thought is. Thank you.
Udayan and Aaron, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We're going to open up for questions. We have a microphone in the back, so just wave your hands and we'll bring it over. But just quickly, I'm going to start with a couple of questions.
Sure. Yep.
But first, it's a question for the audience. Who's scratching their heads still right now? That's okay. People who didn't think they could sell a coffee maker on the internet, they eventually figured out how to do that too. Let's go back to SKU
count.
You talked about, you got the reviving dead SKUs, but I think this is an industry that historically has had more SKUs than it needs.
Yeah.
Is SKU rationalization going to become an important component of this business really going forward?
I think there is a lot of money hidden in those dead SKUs. And I think AI helped us to really unlock that revenue from these dead SKUs for car parts.
But does it also identify those dead SKUs that are always going to be dead SKUs and you have to...
It does.
Yes,
it does. So essentially, before you really do a write-off, I think it's a great way to sort of segment both of these parts as well.
Yeah. And I got Aaron, you asked that good question of where do you start? And other than calling Udayan and his colleagues, I'm curious. I'm just a little poll out there. Who right now thinks they have the beginning of a AI strategy in their business right now? Who's out there? Interesting.
There's one. Yeah.
Okay. But what you
We'd love
learned
to chat
today
after,
is that
yeah.
you're really not behind, although it's starting to feel like you're behind.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that sooner than later, you will fall behind.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I'm seeing, again, and if any, just ping me on LinkedIn if anybody wants to chat. I just chat with brands all day, every day. But in this space, where you could get left behind the quickest is in the LLM space. It's showing up in that search. There's a lot of conversation about agentic commerce. We didn't get into a lot of agentic commerce today because agentic commerce means nothing at the end of the day if you're not showing up in the LLMs in the first place. You can have all the connections on the back end to everything in the world, but if you don't show up as a recommendation, no agent can do anything for you. And so there's a couple of things that are going on. One is data structuring on the back end, so you can have your clean, structured data fed into these AI tools, and then for when agentic takes off. And the other side is just getting awareness in the LLMs as a whole. Like, how are you showing up? I think as of a couple months ago, and this changes on a monthly basis now, it went to retailer.coms first, and then it went to the branded site, and then it went to like Reddit and everything else as a distant third. So it's going to completely change. You have to completely rethink where you're having conversations. Like most brands wouldn't show up on Reddit. Now it's probably pretty important to have a conversation on Reddit. And maybe that changes in a week, maybe that changes in a month. I guess that's the tough part, we don't know. But those are a couple of things that I see brands could easily pull a trigger on. And
Who's got a question for our speakers today? Hold on a second. We're going to get a microphone to you just so you can... Hold on, please, sir. We got a microphone coming. Thank you.
Thank you. You talked about the transition from SEO to GEO, and I think we all have a fairly good understanding of what the rules were under SEO. What are the rules on GEO?
It's tricky primarily because there are a lot of GEO, what is called the visibility index. What should you really be sort of doing? Some of the things that we know for sure essentially is pretty straightforward and fundamental, right? One is just the content optimization, right? I mean, is the content, can it be conversational so that it can be really identified by the engines as potentially to be included? Then what Aaron talked about, essentially having a presence on Reddit, Medium, and so on, so that you really look at not only as to what you are talking about your brand, but what others are talking about your brand as well. These are fundamentals. Actually, we are also collaborating with the Rowan University's computer science department and building our own GenAI visibility index as well. And that has really gotten us very deep into all of these research part. I'll be happy to share the research paper as it sort of goes on. But I'll just keep it to that at this time, the content as to what are others talking about your brand. Secondly is structured data, and effectively the conversational content, I think, is an important component. Yeah.
In SEO, there's been tricks of the trade to marginalize, minimize the negative content out there. How do you filter out the potentially negative content that Aaron mentioned could kind of make its way into the matrix?
So now essentially, Peter, what is happening is the LLMs are extremely smart, and they are better than any humans in terms of filtering out any prior systems as well. So from that perspective, I think authenticity is something which really has come up. Now the question is, how do you really manage authenticity when in many cases, 50% of what the LLMs even refer to is not in your control, right? Because this is what people are talking about your brand. So again, the fundamental question philosophically is, does it really force us to really have a much more unified thing, have a much more consistent approach towards strategy and so on? And I also wanted to talk about, because it's just a couple of points in terms of the AI strategy. I know there has been a lot of talk about the AI strategy. GEO is one of the very specific parts as well. My request, if there was one, like let us say the key takeaway for all of you is, start today. Because you can keep on waiting forever getting the right time. The right time is now, right? And there start with one problem and work back. Let us say GEO is a challenge and you somehow can't really figure out as to how to really get present in all of these ChatGPT or whatever the Gemini conversations. Start there. Maybe that's the problem, right? And then you really sort of work back from there. Create a small experiment. See whether it works or not. So experimentation, I think, is the way of the future and the present, I would think.
Any other questions? Was someone else that had their hand up before?
It is.
Oh, hold on.
yeah.
Hold on. We'll get you in a second. Someone's going over there.
Steve.
Right here.
Steve, yeah.
Thank you.
And just while we get it there, it's a very interesting time for brands because the most information is out there on the legacy brands. And traditionally, the legacy brands, the larger corporations, they take a lot longer to get any of this stuff approved. So just like we saw when Amazon took off and these startup brands that can take off, sometimes I see smaller brands saying, well, I don't have the wealth of information that's out there, but you can create your own new content now, and you're going to be in places like a Reddit that the large brands are, and you can use this as an opportunity to be that challenger startup brand and accelerate. So just thought.
Wait, Aaron. Steve.
You emphasize that with the efficiency is going to open up time, the importance of human judgment. And I run a lot of companies where you have a lot of people that have been doing busy tasks for a long time and don't have the opportunity to leverage that human judgment. But once you free up some of that time, I guess, human judgment, it's kind of an amorphous sort of concept. What have you found to get these people a lot of times that, have been on the treadmill for a really long time just trying to get their work done? How do they, in an effective way, sort of tap into human judgment again?
Again, I don't by any means claim to have a blueprint, Steve, but I think what we have seen in our, as I mentioned, we had the biggest barrier was ego and vanity because we had been doing the same thing for 19 years, right? And I'm pretty sure many of the companies that you are supporting essentially probably have the same situation as well. The first part, I think, is just including everyone who needs to be a part of that conversation, right? And in many cases, I am a part of this executive group called the AI Salon in New Jersey. And I suggested something which was really radical and very brash, I would think. I think that this is the time when the hierarchies and designations do not really matter. Actually, I would say that if we can really come up with a bottom-up process, because I have been amazed in terms of the talent and the creativity of the Gen Z and the millennials who just sort of the workforce. They're able to engage and interact with AI in a very different manner. So if we can really create those overall groups, multi-generational groups to really collaborate on solving just one problem. Just start with one problem. That's where I talk about the starting with one experiment. And let them debate, collaborate, etc. Everyone has the same say. It should not be just because you are the CEO, you really have a higher say, because that would really defeat the purpose. And really have that conversation and come up with one problem that collectively that group wants to solve. We have also found that having smaller groups, 6 to 8 people, is most efficient in terms of decision making, but doing that. The second part is you really have to get people to speak up. As basic as it may sound, in many cases, just think of it, the analyst is on the same thing as probably a CMO, right? They would never speak up, right? So we really have to create that environment of, you can call it psychological safety, so that they're able to speak up, right? And they just sort of come up with. So it's a fundamentally an organizational transformation part. So Aaron talked about it earlier as well. We are really looking at rewiring the organization. My question is, what choice do we have? Because if we don't, we won't exist or survive.
We know that this is, and we're treating this session sort of as the beginning of a discussion, kind of the year of AI at the International Housewares Association. Aaron and I have already talked, and I think Udayan will be a part of this. By midsummer, we're looking to put on an AI summit, an online AI summit that the IHA will sponsor, where we'll be able to dig deeper into a lot of the topics that we kind of scratched the surface on today, including agentic commerce and all of those things. Stay tuned for some announcements on that, but we're looking to do that in the June, July timeframe, maybe a little earlier. We know there's a lot of questions still, and we're gonna do our best at IHA to help giving you some of the context, the content, and the education you need to kind of apply AI to your business and do it effectively and to do it now. Thanks for joining us today. Udayan Bose, Aaron Conant, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. It's been great.
Thank you.